I never told anyone what my uncle whispered to me in his hospital room 3 days before he died. Not until her engagement party 6 months later, when everything she built turned to ash. My name is Isabella Ruiz. I am 38 years old, and I am a forensic accountant specializing in estate litigation. I have spent 15 years learning to follow money through lies, to find truth in spreadsheets, to prove what people want hidden. I have testified in federal court 11 times. I have helped recover $30 million from fraudsters who thought they were clever. I returned to Santa Fe, New Mexico, in March because my uncle, Hector Ruiz, was dying. He was 71 years old. He had raised me from ages 8 to 14 when my parents were killed in a car accident. Then he sent me to boarding school, to college, to a life he could not give me from his small accounting practice. We spoke twice a year. I sent him birthday cards he never answered. I thought he was distant. I did not know he was protecting me. Before I tell you what happened at that party, leave a comment that says legacy, if you believe the dead can still speak through the living. There is a particular kind of silence in a hospital room, when someone is choosing their words carefully. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of calculation, of weighing what can be said against what must be hidden. I have spent 15 years learning to hear the difference between a client who is confused and a client who is afraid. The sounds are not the same. Hector was afraid. Not of death. Of something else. He had pancreatic cancer, stage 4, diagnosed too late for anything but comfort. The doctors gave him weeks. I flew from Chicago the same day his attorney called me. I had not seen Hector in 4 years. He was smaller than I remembered. His skin had the yellow tint of liver failure. But his eyes were sharp. They were the eyes of the man who taught me to add columns in my head, to spot errors in tax returns, to trust numbers more than people. "Bella," he said when I entered. "You came." "Of course I came," I said. "You're my uncle. You're my family." He smiled. It was sad. "Family," he said. "That's why I need you to do something strange. Something that will look like nothing. Something that will take time." Hector told me about Amber. She had been his caregiver for 8 months. 42 years old, blonde, efficient, attentive. She managed his medications, his appointments, his meals. She also managed his attention. She listened to his stories. She laughed at his jokes. She made him feel visible in the way that lonely old men need to feel visible. Hector was not a fool. He knew what she was. "She thinks I will leave her everything," he said. "She has been suggesting it. Gently. Carefully. She has mentioned cousins who might contest. Who might not understand our bond." He coughed. I held his water. "She doesn't know you exist," he said. "I never mentioned you." I showed her no photographs. To her, I am a lonely old man with no one. I understood. "You want me to let her believe it," I said. "You want me to let her take everything." Hector gripped my hand. His fingers were strong despite his body. "I want you to let her try. I want you to wait. I want you to build a case so perfect that when she falls forever. Not just civil, criminal, tax, fraud, everything." He paused. "She is poisoning me, Bella. Slowly. In the medications. I have known for 2 months. I have not stopped her because I need her confident. I need her spending. I need her to commit fully to the theft before you expose her." I sat with this information for an hour. Hector slept. The machines beeped. I thought about calling the police. Calling the doctors. Stopping the poison. Saving my uncle. Arresting Amber immediately. That was the human response. That was the wrong response. Hector had 2 months left at most. Stopping Amber now would give her a slap on the wrist, a claim of misunderstanding, a share of his estate through negotiation. She would win. She would have his money and his death and her freedom. Hector understood something I had learned in my work. The best cases are not built on single acts. They are built on patterns. On documentation. On allowing the criminal to demonstrate their intent through repeated choices. Amber was choosing to poison him. She was choosing to manipulate him. She was choosing to prepare a forged will. Every choice was evidence. Every choice deepened her liability. I made a decision. I would honor my uncle's strategy. I would become the weapon he needed. I would wait, watch, document, and strike when her destruction was complete. I did not reveal myself. Hector and I agreed on a story. I was a distant niece, estranged, uninvolved, flying in from Chicago out of obligation only. I would stay for 2 days, then return to my life. Amber would not see me as threat. I met her on my second day. She was everything Hector described. Beautiful in a maintained way. Warm in a practiced way. She called me sweetie, and touched my arm too often. She explained Hector's condition with professional sympathy. She mentioned the will only once, casually. Your uncle has been so generous, she said. He wants to make sure I'm taken care of. After everything I've given up to be here. I nodded. I smiled. I said I was grateful she was there. Inside I was photographing everything. Her face. Her words. The medications on the counter. The dates. The dosages. I had brought a small camera, professional grade, disguised as a phone charger. I recorded our conversation. I recorded Hector's vital signs. I recorded the medication schedule Amber posted on the refrigerator. I built the beginning of my file. Hector died on March 15th. I was in Chicago when Amber called me. She had found my number in his phone, she said. She was so sorry. She knew we were not close, but she thought I should know. Her voice was perfect grief. Professional, controlled, already moving toward the next phase. I flew back for the funeral. It was small. Hector had few friends left. Amber organized everything. She wore black beautifully. She accepted condolences with modest grace. She mentioned the will only to the attorney, loud enough for others to hear. Hector was so clear, she said. He wanted me to have everything. To continue his legacy. The attorney was a man named Samuel Okonkwo. He had handled Hector's affairs for 20 years. He looked at me across the funeral home. His expression was neutral. Professional. But I saw something. Recognition. He knew who I was. He knew what I did for a living. And he knew, I realized later, what Hector had planned. The will was read 3 days later. Dated March 12th. 3 days before death. Leaving everything to Amber Lynn Collins. For $0.2 million in assets. The house. The practice. The investments. Nothing to me. Nothing to anyone else. I was not mentioned. I did not contest the will immediately. That was the hardest thing I have ever done. I sat in Samuel's office while he explained the document. I let him see my shock, my hurt, my confusion. I did not let him see my preparation. This seems sudden, I said. My uncle and I were estranged, but I never expected to be completely excluded. Samuel nodded. He was careful. Mr. Ruiz was very clear in his final days, he said. Ms. Collins was his primary support. His comfort. He wanted to express his gratitude. I asked for a copy of the will. I asked for the previous will, if one existed. Samuel provided both. The previous will, dated 2019, left everything to me. It named me executor. It detailed Hector's wishes for his practice, his home, his charitable donations. The new will was different. Shorter. Simpler. Sloppier. The signature was shaky. The notarization was questionable. The witnesses were employees of a coffee shop Amber frequented. I thanked Samuel. I said I needed time to process. I flew back to Chicago. Then I began my real work. I took 6 months leave from my firm. I told them I was handling a family estate. I did not tell them I was building a criminal case. I rented a house in Santa Fe, 30 minutes from Hector's neighborhood. I established a cover identity. Bella Cruz, freelance bookkeeper, recent divorce, starting over. I joined the gym where Amber worked out. I köpte här grocery store. I became background in her life. She did not recognize me. The funeral Bella had been polished, professional, brief. This Bella was tired, invisible, unthreatening. I watched Amber spend Hector's money. She bought a new car within weeks. A BMW, $60,000. She renovated the house. She took trips to Cabo, to Miami, to New York. She posted everything on social media. She was not subtle. She was celebrating. She believed she had won. I documented everything. Every purchase. Every post. Every new connection. She joined a tennis club. She started dating. She met a man in June. His name was Victor Hale. Not the CEO from my other stories. A different Victor. A real estate developer, wealthy, recently widowed. By August they were engaged. By September, she was planning the party. The party where she would announce her new life, her new love, her new fortune. I planned too. The engagement party was scheduled for October 15th. Amber had rented the entire top floor of a restaurant in the Railyard district. 200 guests. Live band. 5-course dinner. She had spent $40,000 on the event. She had invited local journalists. She was positioning herself as Santa Fe's newest philanthropist, the caregiver who inherited from her generous patient, now marrying into old money. She was building a public identity that would make her untouchable. I understood the strategy. I had seen it before. The fraudster who becomes too visible to prosecute, too connected to challenge, too celebrated to question. I needed to strike before that cement dried. But I needed to strike completely. Not just civil litigation. Not just will contest. Criminal charges. Tax fraud. Forgery. Poisoning. I needed Amber to lose everything in a single night, the way she had gained everything in a single document. I spent September preparing. I hired a toxicologist to review Hector's medical records. I hired a handwriting expert to analyze the will. I hired a private investigator to find the coffee shop witnesses. I built my case in folders, organized, chronological, undeniable. I also found Hector's letter. It was hidden where he told me to look. In the floorboard of his study, beneath the rug, in a space only I would know to check. He had shown me that hiding place when I was 12, when he gave me my first real accounting ledger. If you ever need to keep something safe, he had said, make it part. The letter was dated March 10th, 2 days before the forged will, 5 days before his death. Bella, he wrote. If you are reading this, I am gone and you are waiting. Good. That is the hardest part. The waiting. I need you to know why I chose this. Not for revenge. For justice. Amber took my loneliness and turned it into opportunity. She took my gratitude and turned it into entitlement. She took my life and treated it as a transaction. I want her to experience the full transaction. To have everything. To believe everything is hers. Then to learn that ownership without earning is just borrowing with interest. The interest is you. I have left you nothing in the will because I am leaving you something better. The truth. The process. The satisfaction of building what she cannot buy. I love you. I have always loved you. I sent you away to protect you from this world. Now I am bringing you back to clean it up. I read that letter every morning in September. It became my meditation, my justification, my connection to the man I had not understood until he was gone. Hector had been a forensic accountant too, before I was born. He had worked federal cases. He had taught me everything I knew, disguised as childhood lessons. How to spot a forged signature. How to trace hidden income. How to wait for the right moment to reveal what you know. I had thought I chose my career. He had chosen it for me, prepared me for it, then sent me the case that would test everything. The engagement party approached. Amber's spending accelerated. She bought a wedding dress from a designer in Dallas. She put a deposit on a venue for the wedding. She merged her finances with Victor's, opening joint accounts, discussing prenuptial terms that would protect her assets. Every merger was evidence. Every conversation with Victor, if he knew the source of her money, was conspiracy. She was not just a thief. She was becoming an accomplice factory, pulling others into her structure, making them liable for her crimes. I made my final preparations in the week before the party. I contacted the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I provided a summary of my findings. Tax fraud on unreported inheritance. False statements on loan applications using forged assets. I contacted the Santa Fe County District Attorney's Office. I provided the toxicology report, the medical records, the evidence of poisoning. I contacted the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. I provided the interstate elements, the wire transfers, the mail fraud. I did not ask them to act immediately. I asked them to be ready. I told them the date. I told them the location. I told them that the subject would be surrounded by witnesses, by media, by the social elite of Santa Fe. I told them that public arrest would prevent flight, prevent document destruction, prevent influence peddling. They agreed. They had been waiting for a case this clean, this well documented, this ready. I also prepared my personal presentation, not for law enforcement, for the guests, for Victor, for Amber herself. I wanted her to understand, in the moment before the cuffs, exactly who had destroyed her and why. The night arrived. October 15th. I dressed carefully. A black suit, professional, severe. My hair pulled back. No jewelry except small gold earrings Hector had given me for my 16th birthday. I arrived early. I had been invited, technically. Amber had sent an invitation to Bella Cruz, bookkeeper, through the gym connection. She did not know Bella Cruz was Isabella Ruiz. She did not know the tired divorced woman she had pitted was her destruction. I stood at the bar. I watched the guests arrive. Victor Hale, silver-haired, confident, proud of his beautiful fiancée. Local politicians. Business leaders. Philanthropists. The people Amber had collected to validate her transformation. The band played. The champagne flowed. Amber made her entrance in a gold dress, stunning, triumphant. She gave a speech about love, about second chances, about the generosity of strangers who become family. She mentioned Hector only briefly, a dear friend who taught me the importance of legacy. I smiled. I raised my glass. I waited. The dessert course was served. Amber and Victor moved through the room, accepting congratulations. This was the moment. The peak. The height from which she would fall. I walked to the center of the room. I did not rush. I let people notice me. Let the silence spread. Excuse me, I said. My voice carried. I had trained it to carry. I need to share something about legacy. Amber turned. She saw me. She did not recognize me. Not yet. My name is Isabella Ruiz, I said. I am Hector Ruiz's niece. His only blood relative. The woman he raised from childhood. The woman he named in his 2019 will as his sole heir and executor. I paused. I let the words land. The will Ms. Collins presented, dated March 12th of this year, is a forgery. The signature is not Hector's. The notarization is fraudulent. The witnesses were paid. I have expert testimony to prove this. I pulled out my phone. I displayed the comparison documents. The handwriting analysis. The toxicology report. Hector Ruiz was poisoned. Slowly, over months, by the woman who called herself his caregiver. I have medical evidence. I have her purchase records for the substances. I have her search history for the methods. Amber's face transformed. Recognition. Then fear. Then calculation. She reached for Victor. This woman is delusional, she said. She's been stalking me. She's obsessed with. The IRS is waiting downstairs, I said. They have questions about your tax returns. The $40,000 for this party, for example, paid from an account you claimed as inheritance. Inheritance that was obtained through forgery and murder. That's taxable, Ms. Collins. It's also criminal. I looked at Victor. Mr. Hale, I assume you did not know the source of your fiancée's fortune. I assume you did not know she was planning to merge your assets with stolen money, making you liable for conspiracy. I am giving you the gift of knowledge. What you do with it is your choice. Victor looked at Amber. His expression was changing. The pride becoming doubt. The confidence becoming calculation. He was a businessman. He understood numbers. He understood risk. He was understanding that she was poison. The doors opened. Federal agents entered. Not dramatically. Professionally. They identified themselves. They asked Amber to come with them. They mentioned her rights. They mentioned charges. Forgery. Fraud. Tax evasion. Murder. Amber did not go quietly. That was her final mistake. She screamed. She accused me of framing her. She clung to Victor, who stepped away. She knocked over a champagne glass, staining her gold dress. The photographers captured everything. The journalists recorded everything. Her public collapse was documented in real time, distributed before she reached the squad car. I watched them take her away. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Just completion. The task Hector had given me was finished. I turned to the room. The guests were frozen, shocked, gossiping. I spoke once more. Hector Ruiz was a forensic accountant for 30 years. He taught me this work. He prepared me for this case. He knew he was being poisoned. He chose not to stop it because he wanted justice more than he wanted survival. He wanted Amber to demonstrate her guilt completely before I exposed her. He sacrificed his remaining time to ensure she could not escape. That is legacy. That is what family means. I walked out. The agents had my contact information. The attorneys had my documentation. The case would proceed through courts for years. The outcome was certain. I spent the next week in depositions. IRS, FBI, district attorney. Each agency wanted my testimony, my documents, my analysis. I provided everything. I explained Hector's strategy, the waiting, the documentation, the public exposure. Some investigators were uncomfortable with the ethical implications. A man allowed himself to be poisoned to build a criminal case. A niece allowed a thief to spend stolen money to deepen her liability. I did not apologize. I explained. Hector had weeks to live regardless. The poison was already in his system when he discovered it. Stopping Amber would have given her a lesser charge, a negotiated settlement, a portion of his estate. She would have one. This way, she loses everything. The money, the freedom, the reputation, the future. That was Hector's choice. I honored it. The investigators accepted this. They had seen worse ethical compromises in pursuit of worse criminals. Amber had not just stolen. She had killed. She had manipulated. She had treated a human life as a financial instrument. She had earned her destruction. Victor Hale contacted me. Not to blame. To understand. He had known Amber for 6 months. He had believed her stories. He was a man who had built real things. Real estate. Real businesses. Real relationships. He understood the difference between structure and performance. I was going to marry her, he said. I was going to merge my life with hers. You were going to merge your life with a crime, I said. You are welcome. He laughed. It was bitter. For what? Saving me from my own stupidity. For giving you the chance to build something real instead. That is what Hector gave me. The chance to do real work instead of comfortable work. The trial began in March, 1 year after Hector's death. I testified for 3 days. I explained forensic accounting to the jury. I explained the difference between civil fraud and criminal intent. I explained how Amber's spending patterns demonstrated knowledge of guilt. Innocent people do not hide purchases. They do not create cover stories. They do not forge documents to protect what they believe is theirs. Amber's defense was predictable. She claimed Hector had wanted her to have everything. She claimed the will was his idea. She claimed the poisoning was accidental, a medication error, a misunderstanding. The prosecution presented my documentation, the toxicology, the handwriting analysis, the financial tracing, the timeline of her preparations before Hector's diagnosis, before she even met him. She had researched wealthy elderly men. She had targeted him specifically. The care had always been a business plan. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Murder in the first degree. Fraud. Forgery. Tax evasion. Sentencing. Life without parole. I attended the sentencing. I sat in the back. Amber saw me. She stared. She mouthed something. I could not read it. I did not need to. She had lost. Completely. The money was gone, spent, traceable, taxable. The house was seized. The car was sold. The wedding dress was evidence. She would die in prison. I thought about Hector. About his letter. About the floorboard where he had hidden his truth. I had honored him. I had completed his work. But I had also learned something. Revenge, even justified, even successful, does not bring back the dead. It does not restore what was lost. It only prevents future loss. It only protects others. I returned to Chicago. I returned to my firm. I took new cases. I helped new clients recover what fraudsters had stolen. I was good at this work. I was better now. I understood the cost, the waiting, the sacrifice, the emptiness after completion. I established the Hector Ruiz Foundation. I used the recovered assets, what the IRS and courts had not claimed, to fund forensic accounting scholarships. I wanted others to learn what he taught me, to see what people hide, to protect what matters. I spoke at universities. I testified before legislative committees about elder fraud. I became visible in a way Hector never had. He had worked in shadows. I worked in light. That was the difference between his generation and mine, between his sacrifice and my opportunity. I dated occasionally, carefully. I looked for performance in the men I met. The too perfect stories. The too careful listening. I found some. I walked away. I found one who was real. A teacher. Boring in the best way. Consistent. Integrated. He knew what I did. He did not want to hear the stories. He wanted to know if I could stop working at 6 and have dinner. I am learning to do this. I want to tell you what this experience taught me, because I did not spend 18 months building a criminal case just to have a story. I did it because my uncle believed I was capable of justice, and I needed to prove him right. Fraud does not announce itself. It arrives beautifully, listens carefully, and makes gratitude feel like love. The people who take from the dying will always find a way to make their interests sound like devotion. They will talk about legacy, about care, about what they deserve for their sacrifice. Do not believe them. Watch for the gaps between service and documentation. Keep your own records. Trust the professionals who verify before trusting. And if you discover someone you love is being consumed, do not act on impulse. Build the case. Wait for the moment. Make the destruction complete. Amber wrote me once from prison. A letter, handwritten, full of justification and accusation. She claimed Hector had manipulated her. That he had led her on. That the poisoning was his idea, a way to frame her, to give me purpose. She claimed I was the real monster. The niece who let her uncle die to build her career. I read it once. I did not reply. I understood what she was doing. Rebuilding her narrative. Creating a story where she was victim. Where her choices were forced. Where her crimes were reactions. This is what fraudsters do. They perform even in defeat. They manipulate even without audience. I filed the letter with the prosecution. It demonstrated no remorse. It would affect her parole hearings in 20 years. I had stopped being her victim. I had become her consequence. That was Hector's gift to me. Transformation through patience. I visit Santa Fe twice a year. I stay in Hector's house, which I recovered through civil litigation. I sleep in the room where I stayed at 14, when he was still my guardian, before he sent me away. I sit in his study. I touch the floorboard where his letter waited. I tell him about my cases. About my students. About the teacher who makes me dinner. I do not know if he hears. I do not know if the dead listen. But I know that speaking keeps him real. Keeps the work real. Keeps the waiting and the documentation, and the final exposure connected to love instead of just strategy. I am 40 now. I have built a career on finding what people hide. I have learned that what we hide is usually fear. Fear of loss. Fear of death. Fear of being invisible. Hector was not afraid. He chose visibility in his final days. He chose to be seen fully, truthfully, by the one person who mattered. That is the legacy I protect. Not the money. Not the victory. The choice to be real before the end. My name is Isabella Ruiz. I am 40 years old. I am a forensic accountant specializing in estate litigation. I have testified in federal court 14 times. I have helped recover $37 million from fraudsters who thought they were clever. I have sent 3 people to prison for elder fraud and financial exploitation. I have established a foundation that teaches others to do this work. I have learned to have dinner at 6 with someone who does not perform. I have learned that the dead can speak if the living are patient enough to listen. Hector spoke to me through a floorboard, through a strategy, through a sacrifice I did not understand until I completed it. I let his killer spend his money for 6 months. I let her believe she had won. Then I destroyed her completely, legally, publicly, permanently. That was not revenge. That was justice delayed for precision. That was love translated into documentation. That was family, finally, after all the years of distance. If this story meant something to you, leave a 2 in the comments so I know you stayed with me through the whole thing. And if you know someone who needs to hear it, share it with them. Some messages find the people who need them.